Hello valued viewers, I hope you're all doing very well. For today's viewer request, I'm actually taking two of your requests and putting them into one war game. The first request is that we take a look at this excellent Warzone article. Back in May this was published, finally getting a chance to have a look at it. China's H-6 bomber, that's their indigenous built Badger, seen firing air-launched ballistic missile for the first time. The ballistic missile they're firing is a derivative of the YJ-21. This missile is no stranger to us, we've had our version of it in the DCS for a few years now, and we've done several battles with it, and presumably you guys want to see us using the Badger with the air-launched version of the YJ-21 against, say, a US carrier group. The second request that I wanted to tie in is probably best if I just read it out. So, from Force CSW, if you are looking for a realistic scenario that excites and informs, I have a suggestion. China sends out AWACS to search for a US carrier group operating somewhere in the vastness of the Western Pacific, so that it can be targeted with DF-21, Chinese ballistic missiles. The US carrier would be stationed somewhere well beyond the reach of Chinese coastal sensors, but still within the range of the DF-21 missile. The Chinese AWACS has to find the US carrier and maintain contact long enough that the missiles can be launched and guided to the target. The US carrier would be defended by combat air patrol of, say, 2 to 4 planes armed with AMRAAM or JTAM or SM-6, and supported by AWACS. Depending on the results, you can experiment with various defensive layouts, such as how far ahead do the defending aircraft need to be to screen the carrier from the hostile AWACS. You could also test Chinese counters such as long-range J-20s armed with PL-15 and so on, attempting to hunt US defenders. Such a fight would be an informative look at how these weapons operate in closer to real-world operations. It would also tell us which side has the advantage in naval war that spreads beyond the Taiwan Strait. Well, that's a really interesting request and a really good request. Your requests on the whole are very good, viewers. So here's what I've come up with. It's 2027 and the US and China have ended a conflict. A US carrier group is stalking off the coast of China, and China have to find it and attack it with their air-launched YJ-21s. This is the full version here, but to start with I figured we would actually do a scaled down version just to show some of the tech in action and how it's going to work. So this scaled down version will have no defenders, it will also have no interceptors, it's just the base mechanics in play. Here is China, the southeastern edge of it, and here is Taiwan, all to scale. 800 miles off the coast in the Philippine Sea is the US carrier group here with 1 carrier and 6 escorts. In my mind, the way China would try and find this carrier group, assuming that it couldn't be done with satellites and so on for whatever reason, is it would send out a fan of AWACS, and it does have many AWACS. So imagine a center point in the southeast of China, and then AWACS fanning out in a divergent pattern. In this area we can see here we've got 2 of those AWACS, one here and one here, and the dotted line shows the path that they've been on. I had to figure out how far an AWACS could detect a surface target at. I've done some basic maths and I've come up with about 250 miles. Please let me know your thoughts on that. I've shown in red here 250 miles radius from the AWACS there and there. And this simplified simulation, we're going to start with this AWACS here, just getting in detection range and spotting the carrier group. The way the war game will work is that I've got a yellow ring here around the carrier group of 250 miles. If a red AWACS enters that yellow ring, then they've seen the carrier group, and missiles of course can fire. Once the Chinese AWACS enters the yellow ring and spots the carrier group, it's not just going to charge towards it, obviously, because that would be a death sentence. Instead, it wants to work its way along the edge of the 250 mile ring here so it can keep as safe as possible, but also stay within the detection range of the carrier group in case it changes speed, changes course or whatever. Also, once it enters the yellow ring, it's going to feed firing coordinates through to a series of bombers. Of course, they are the Badgers, the H-6s. In my mind, what China could do was, as I said, send out a fan of AWACSs, and each AWACS would have attached to it a regiment of bombers, and a regiment of Chinese bombers is 12 H-6 bombers. Again, no fighters at the moment, let's just keep it simple with the bombers. They're going to travel about 70 or 80 miles behind the AWACS. Each of those bombers is going to be equipped with 4 of the YJ-21 missiles. We've used a different 3D model for it because we couldn't get the actual YJ-21 3D model working, but it's going to be near enough for today. So, a regiment of 12 bombers with 4 missiles each is 48 YJ-21 missiles. So finally, what will happen in this simplified scenario, viewers, is that AWACS will cross that threshold, it will spot the task force, it will go into its pattern, it will feed firing coordinates through to the bombers. The bombers should fire the missiles at a range of what will be about 320 miles here, and we'll see what happens. So let's run that through first of all. Go! and he's seen a carrier group. Let's have a look at the bombers. 70 miles behind. They've changed course now to head directly. Oh wow, firing already. Missiles away. That is kind of scary, viewers, right? Off they go. They're going to have to go into kind of low orbit to do this. So you can see at the bottom, 130,000 feet, 4,000 knots. So we've assumed about Mach 10 times the speed of sound for their Vmax. Their impact velocity is going to be about Mach 4, about 2,500 knots, which we think is going to be pretty realistic. Its flight path is not going to be hugely realistic today, viewers. We can't do true ballistic. We can only do up to about 300,000 feet. Off they go. Here is the carrier group. I should have said it's got a carrier in the middle. No fighters on this version that we're running. 10 miles by 8 miles spread. Perfect scenario is 6 Arleigh Burke 3s. Missiles are 230,000 feet and increasing, and 3,900 knots. And there is the curvature of the Earth. These things just take ages, even though they're going 10 times the speed of sound, going 320 miles. Just think how big 320 miles is. That's like wider than my entire country is. And these will do it in about 3 minutes. Physics is just absolutely nuts. Okay, they peaked at just above 270,000 feet, and they're now 3,800 knots. Now let's go and have a look at the defensive assets on the carrier group. No action yet. They've got several lines of defense, as you know. They've got SM3, SM6, SM2, ESSM, Phalanx, Sharp Sticks, Rude Words. 240,000 feet, 3,900 knots. 2/3 there. They're about 150 miles away probably, or 120 miles away. Not long before we see the first line of defense, and there it is. SM6 strangely today, no SM3. Ah. Okay. They've made that decision. There's the SM3. And SM2. In fact, they've basically just sent everything up. Beautiful. They've pressed the everything button. Missiles, 170,000 feet. Surprised they even fired SM2 at that altitude. Because the missiles are going so fast, they have to think, you know, a long way ahead of where the missile's going to be when the SM2 gets near it. Ooh, counter missile there. The firepower on both sides is immense. Now, it's always hard to know what to look at, so I guess we'll just look at this, see what happens. Is anything being hit? Yes, it is! Missiles being hit. Missiles being hit. Well done. Beautiful. More missiles being intercepted. 170 missiles fired. Still pumping them out at a rate of knots. Probably best if we just look here for a little bit. It's just a giant melee at this point here. And imagine how hard this would be to track, because they'd be tracking their own missiles as well as the hostile missiles. And to an extent, that's actually modelled as well. A lot of these missiles will miss because they just get confused about what they're supposed to track. Pause. We are now a lateral distance of 10 miles away, and about about a dozen have survived. Well, place your bets now, viewers. They're down to 3,500 knots. That's still real fast. That's still Mach 7. They'll get slower as they get lower, obviously. Intercepted. Pause. 3 left and a speed of 3,100 knots. So about Mach 4.5-ish. Well done. Missiles defeated. And that correlates perfectly with when we did the DF-26 and the DF-21 attacks on the US carrier group. Remember, there was a threshold that they could defend from, and I think it was about 60 or 70, and that was 48 time on target. So it is within the threshold of what we describe as a perfect US carrier group, i.e. a carrier and 6 Arleigh Burke 3s, which is almost impossible in real life, but let's say it's possible in 2027. But let's see what happens now if we start adding the other layers of defense and attack in. So the carrier group is in the same place, 800 miles away from the coast. Why don't we look at them first? They've got some of their air wing. I've not modelled the whole air wing because it's not that type of battle today. It's not a long attritional battle. We just want first responders. So in the air, I figured there would be 4 aircraft if they were on a war footing, and they would be stealth, obviously. So they would be F-35C, 2 south and 2 north, all AI set to veteran skill level. Otherwise, I've not tinkered with them at all. They have 35Cs and they have 6 missiles, 2 AIM 260 with a range of about 130 miles, and a couple of sidewinders for close-in defence, and that's them. As well as that, their new party piece, of course, their big stick, their AIM 174/SM6. They're going to use them on Hornets. Now, I presume they wouldn't have Hornets airborne because Hornets are very visible to radar. So they're going to basically be sitting on the cats, ready to launch a red alert just in case there is an incursion. And I didn't really know what to give them, so I've given them 4 big sticks each and a couple of sidewinders and a fuel tank. They will scramble at the first sign of action, which will happen pretty much straight away because we've set this time the AWACS further back, obviously, because we're simulating the AWACS trying to find the carrier group. So we've started them at 400 miles away from the carrier, which is my calculated distance where the carrier would be able to spot the AWACS from. And interestingly, I've not put AWACS in today. If I had AWACS up here and whatnot, that would kind of defeat the purpose of trying to hide the carrier group because the AWACS would be very detectable and could easily be triangulated. So I've just had, in this case, the carrier group, which is 90% MCON, or more than 90% probably. So the AWACS starts here at 400 miles. It needs to get, if you remember, within this yellow ring here, 250 miles away from the carrier group. At that point, it sees the carriers and it can send the firing order over to the bears, not the bears, sorry, the badgers. The badgers, again, will be 70 miles behind, and it will be 1 regiment of. This time, they have fighter support, because if they were going to do this, obviously, they need fighter support. Now, the fighter support could only take them so far. It gets harder and harder to operate fighters the further away from the coast they get, but this is about 500 miles away from the coast, so with, say, 1 tanker in support, they could easily operate a flight of J-20s, assuming that J-20s can air-to-air refuel. I presume they can. So they've got a pair up here, kind of 70, 80 miles ahead to the starboard and port of the AWACS. I didn't really know where to put them, to be honest, but it seemed about right. They've got 4 PL-15s, and they've got 4 close-range defence missiles, otherwise set the same, and a pair down here. They are set to escort the AWACS in this current formation until they detect that the AWACS may be under threat. And that's pretty much it, viewers. The Americans are just going to attack whatever they can see, which is probably going to be the AWACS, because the AWACS is about to become visible. Would China have more fighters out in front of the AWACS? Well, I don't really know. If you imagine there was 10 AWACS out on different radials, that is 40 J-20s just operating, protecting the AWACS. So I'm not sure how many you can actually justify having, but I don't really know. It's very difficult to set these out because you have to make so many assumptions about what units will be where and how they would be used. Right, let's have a look at the carrier, and the Hornets are ready to scramble with their big sticks for absolute fleet defense. It's almost like a modern Tomcat now. The F-35s have seen well, they've seen something. They know something's out there now. In terms of the AWACS, it's obviously just past the 400-mile mark, unbeknownst to itself. Remember, it can't detect the stealth F-35 fighters. And the J-20s are currently not after burning, which means they do not realise that the threat is coming yet, so they're just escorting still. At some point, they're going to flick a switch and realise that they're being attacked. Let's have a look at the carrier again. 1 Hornet is up. So I guess we just wait at this point. Here are the badges. Would they be 70 miles behind at AWACS? Well, I don't really know, but that would be my guess. I would have thought they want to keep relatively close, but not super close to them. In terms of the max firing range of the missile, that unfortunately I can't model. The real YJ-21 has range of... Actually, I can't remember. I think it's about 700 miles. I haven't managed to get it to do that yet. I'm a bit more restricted. Hence, I wanted to move the Badgers a bit closer. 320 miles. I've got a pretty reliable attack pattern for that missile. So eventually we'll get it working at the full 700 miles. F-35 sees AWACS. J-20 doesn't see anything yet. All 4 QRA Hornets airborne. See if J-20s have reacted yet. J-20s haven't reacted yet. Basically, as soon as this AWACS here detects the Super Hornets, then the J-20s will be off the chain. Hornets. Flying strangely low and unaggressively, bearing in mind that they're just about to be spotted. Aha, their bits are extending. Giggity. Which can only mean one thing, the J-20s have spotted, or should I say the AWACS, the Chinese AWACS have spotted the Hornets. The J-20s have been vectored in to take down the Hornets. Remember, they can't see the F-35s yet, they can only see the Hornets. The fighter front is going to close very quickly now. The guys up here, afterburners on and off they go. Distance between fighter fronts now of about 180 nautical miles, 210 land miles. Hornets still not really doing much tactical, but they have to think about fuel as well, viewers. They can't just burn 400 miles. So quite often they'll go on mil power like this and slowly climb to a point where they detect that they have enough fuel to turn their afterburners on and go max speed. So we have to bear that in mind as well. And that's all modelled relatively accurately. So the Chinese AWACS only has to get 90 nautical miles or 100 nautical miles now before it can feed its info back to the Badgers for firing. So Americans have got to stop them before that happens. The Hornets are doing something here. You see they've started to change. That probably means they've reached that critical point for now where they've decided they can turn their afterburners on and not run out of fuel and make the intercept. Or he's just doing some weird circuits. No, they're attacking. There he goes. So he's been looking at his FPass page and he says, right, I've got whatever, 16,000 pounds left. I've got a 380 mile intercept to do. Now I can go for it. These guys are just about to do the same. We are only 6 minutes into the sim. Wow. It shows how quickly this vast distances can be covered if everyone's travelling at Mark 2 or Mark 1 or whatever. The J-20s will be able to reach Mark 2 today. The F-35s only Mark 1.6. Not that it will make much difference. In terms of how we set them up, you probably all know this by now, but the J-20s are radar cross-section of 0.05 square metres, F-35s 0.002 square metres, Super Hornets at 0.5 square metres, so not very stealthy at all. So the Super Hornets can't see the J-20s. The J-20s are stealth as well. They're not quite as good as the F-35s, but all they can see, and the F-35s, all they can see is that AWACS up there. These guys are burning now for the intercept. J-20s have now split, which means they've seen something new. I don't know what that is. I think they've seen that F-35. That doesn't mean they can fire at that F-35, but it means that someone's seen that F-35, which is pretty impressive at that distance. F-35 clearly sees J-20 as well, so they see each other. They're just waiting to get in parameters. Same here. These guys are no longer going for the Super Hornets. They're now going for the F-35s. And this guy here is probably going for the Super Hornets. And that guy there is luckily going to defend the Super Hornets. So it should work out. We'll see. AWACS, 70 miles to go. So we've got 70 miles to make the intercept now. Distances between these two guys of 40 miles. Not long before they start firing at each other. Super Hornets trying to get within parameters of the big stick. Oh, something's happened. It's a AIM 260 from an F-35. Fired at a range of roughly 30 miles. That's the max distance you can see a J-20 in perfect parameters. According to our sim at least. Info bar at the bottom. Travelling at 3,000 knots. Oh, it's going to miss. How about that? No, it's not. Look at that. Speaking too soon. That is a hit. Wow, and massive 9G dive from the Chinese guy. Loads more missiles out. I'll go and have a look at them in a minute, but I think that's a dead J-20. He has evaded it. Well done, sir. And the F-35 treated him as dead, and he's gone for the AWACS. That's an interesting thing to do. More AIM 260s out. Trying to see what the Super Hornets are up to. We've got a cross there, but no big stick out yet. I'm trying to look at the J-20s now. That's probably a kill, I imagine. Another dodge. Okay, fair enough. We have Chinese missiles out now. PL-15 out there. One Chinese J-20 down. This guy's just got himself in all sorts of trouble. I don't know what he tried to do. But he's in real trouble now. I think he assumed the guy was on his way out. No big sticks out yet from the Hornets, which is frustrating because they're going to be vulnerable soon as these F-35s start to get worn down. Oh, 2 J-20s down. 2 J-20s down. No F-35s down. Sorry, I've missed the kills, viewers. I'm sorry, guessing we've got a big stick out. Woof! Lob that guy. It was at a range, out of interest of... would have been about 180 nautical miles, about 210 land miles. Dogfight weirdly going on here. Real weird dogfight. I don't know what they've done to each other. Stealth planes can't find each other, apparently. Okay, and these, what the F-35s have done is they've protected the F-18s so that they could get the big stick out. That's what I really care about at the moment. More AIM-260s out on these J-20s. Now, the interesting thing is I've actually run the sim a few times because I had to check everything worked. And I got some really differing results each time. Sometimes even the Chinese one. Wow, 4 J-20s. Oh, no. The scoreboard's gone wrong. Look at that. It says 4 J-20s down, but there was only 4 in there. It's doubling them up for some reason. I've never seen that before, viewers. That's new. I wonder if I added the scoreboard twice or something. It's doubling it up. I would just ignore it. I don't know what it is. Anyway, 2 J-20s down. 2 J-20s. Oh no, the J-20s have got through on the Super Hornets. That's bad news, but there is an F-35 in there somewhere. Yes, there is. And he's now pummeling AIM-260s at the aggressor, but PL-15's out against the Super Hornets. This is going to be interesting. AIM-260 in on this guy here. Could he... Oh, he's got his non-stealthy side. Hopefully it will finish him off. Yes, it will. 1 J-20 left. Ignore the scoreboard. It's being weird for some reason. Oh, look, a big stick again. One thing I didn't think I'd see today. A big stick fired against a J-20 and it's killed it. Okay, it's not really meant for that, but if it suits you then, that's fine. Now we've got some legacy PL-15s, though, coming in, which are going to be tracking those Super Hornets, and it's a very hard thing to beat at 1,500 knots. So, there you go. Alright, well, apparently 8 J-20s down. Right, better check the AWACS, actually. AWACS is now 40 miles from the border, and it, you know, the thing, and as soon as it gets there, it will send that firing order. So it's now all up to the SM-6, which was fired 210 miles away. This guy's still getting chased by a PL-15. SM-6, okay. Here he goes. Big stick, doing what a big stick does. Coming in at Mark 4, pretty much. 40,000 feet. Boom, AWACS down. Well done, boys. Wow, that's got a lot of wings. All the wings. Destroyed 40 miles before it got within the ring where it could send fire orders to the Badgers. What are the Badgers going to do now? They are turning round because they know there's no AWACS to guide their missiles in. Again, it says 2 AWACS destroyed. Just ignore that, viewers. I've done something stupid, obviously. Out of interest, what happens to this big stick? Okay, it's just gone dumb because the AWACS is gone. Look. Wow, not a single F-35. That's the first time I've done that, viewers, where the F-35, at least one F-35 didn't get shot down. You know what? Fine. But I've done it before, as I said, when all F-35s got shot down. So you just never know what's going to happen when you run these. But well done anyway. 14 AIM-260s fired, 5 PL-15s fired, no close-range missiles fired, 4 J-20s shot down, 1 AWACS shot down. And I hadn't thought about this bit, but why don't we just see what happens now? Let's see if they go and chase them. They do. Look at that. 1 Super Hornet's run out of fuel. He's off. Amazingly, all of the F-35s still have fuel, and they've burnt probably 200 miles pretty much. So it's amazing they've still got fuel, but fair enough to them. He's run out of fuel. They have about 200 miles of combat range, you know, by which I mean actual combat, having to use your afterburner and stuff like that. That guy's run out of fuel. That guy's run out of fuel. Come on, lob a big stick. You've got the range. F-35. Still got fuel. Go on, catch them up. We've got some big stick carriers coming in here. Ah, out of fuel. Out of fuel. 2 F-35s left. 140 miles. He's really going for it. No, yes, no, yeah, no. He's out of fuel. How close did he get? He got... Oh, not very close. And that's it, viewers. As I said, I ran that through a few times and I got different result every time I did it. But that's the first time I got a blue whitewash or a blue wash. So I guess that's a pretty good way to do it. And what did it show? I guess it showed that you need the F-35s up as fleet defense to protect it from hostile red interceptors. It showed that you need the big stick because with just the AIM 260s, bearing in mind that, as I said, most of the time the J20s did a lot better, just the F-35s on their own with the AIM 260s, most of those runs just weren't enough. You needed the Super Hornets, you needed their ability to fire over 200 miles, to lob missiles over the entire battle to hit the element of high value, which was in this case was the AWACS. I hope I've sort of satisfied what you requested, guys. I know you always want bigger things and thousands of miles and all this stuff, but when you start messing with the sim to this level, it genuinely does get quite difficult for me. So I do the best I can and try and produce some interesting scenarios, and I'm glad this one worked out well. I hope you enjoyed that, and bye-bye.